Okay, so we're going to move on to our next panel, which is on the topic of workforce readiness. So our panel is titled Ready to Work, Getting the Right Skills to the Right People. We all know that in North America and in Europe, we're facing massive worker shortages, whereas India has a surplus of workers, but none of them have the right skills. So our next group of speakers represent global corporations and large edtech companies. And they're going to talk about how they're planning to fix this imbalance of getting the right skills to the right people. Please join me in welcoming Phil Baty, Chief Knowledge Officer of Times Higher Ed, Jawahir Morarji, Managing Director of Emeritus, Raghav Gupta, Managing Director at Coursera, Stacey Güney from ArcelorMittal, and Ankit Aggarwal, Founder and CEO, Unstop. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the networking's going so well. We're all just chatting outside, so it's great to see you all. So, in my early career, I was a journalist. I've had to pivot my own skills quite a few times from journalism into other parts of management, but I still have a keen eye for great journalism. And I was reading The Guardian on the aeroplane out here just last night, actually, and a very sober economics writer, Larry Elliott from The Guardian, who's normally incredibly sober and sensible, he grabbed my attention with a top line. The first line in his article was, "The machines are coming and they will eat your job." 4IR, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, there's some major challenges around how do we skill and upskill, and how do we encourage our people to be lifelong learners. So there's some huge challenges around skills gaps and ensuring people are ready for work, ready for an extremely uncertain future. So we have a fantastic panel to get this going, and I'm going to ask them just to very quickly introduce themselves, because I want to set the scene as to the credentials they have and the contributions they're going to make. So if we just race through with some elevator pitches, maybe we'll start with you, Stacey.
Hi, I'm an educator. I'm not a private equity specialist or an entrepreneur. I actually work with students in real life, and I try to call myself a learning evangelist and revolutionary, and I've seen and experienced how learning firsthand inspires hope, which can create and transformation in lives, communities, and society. But I've also worked in higher education in the United States, predominantly in community colleges, as both a faculty member and as an administrator, and working with AARP Foundation on a social innovation fund grant for getting women back to work 50 plus. It was always fun to run into somebody that you've known from a completely different line of work. And then I moved to network weaving on behalf of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it was the founding director of Every Learner Everywhere, which is their post-secondary digital learning. But now I've moved into the corporate world, and I joined ArcelorMittal at their corporate headquarters in Luxembourg. For those of you who do not know, we are the world's leading steel company. We are now in India in a big way through our joint venture with Nippon Steel, AMNS India. We are now the largest foreign direct investor in India in the manufacturing space. You may have seen just a month ago, we made another huge announcement for 1.53 lakh crore to develop a new set of projects in Odisha. We also have the world's largest renewable energy project that we are sponsoring to offset as part of our massive transition to really delivering on smarter steels for people and planet. Glad to be here today.
Thank you very much. That's a huge array of skills that you're bringing to the table today. Thank you very much for joining us. Jawahir, could you give an elevator pitch?
Sure, Phil. Thanks so much. My name is Jawahir Morarji. I head the enterprise business for Emeritus. I work across Asia Pacific, India, Middle East, and Africa. Work with about 300 corporate clients across these regions and support them with their learning needs. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Raghav?
Hi, everyone. My name is Raghav Gupta. I'm MD for Coursera India and Asia Pacific. Many folks here might be familiar with Coursera, so maybe I can say a little bit about what Coursera India is, which a bunch of us have been working on for the last 6-7 years. So Coursera is a three-sided marketplace. There are learners, educators, and enterprises. In India, there are about 20 million people who come to Coursera to learn. Every year, we add about 4-5 million learners who come to Coursera. Thankfully, with not a lot of paid marketing. Second, educators. Till 2 years ago, all universities and companies who used to teach on Coursera were outside India. Over the last 2 years, we've built a portfolio of top universities who teach on Coursera in India. So IIM Ahmedabad, IIT, Bombay, IISc, ISI, and many others, 15 of them. And then 5 companies, PwC, L&T, Tally, and so on. So those are the ones who create content on Coursera. And then we work with enterprises, so businesses, governments, and campuses. We work with hundreds of companies. We work with about 1,100 campuses where students are learning on campus. And then we work with government organizations. That's a quick intro to Coursera. If I may, because we are here in an education conference, I want to give a quick shout out because Mr. Rajendra Pawar is here, and folks may know this, the original founder of NIIT, and I know he's speaking later today, but just wanted to acknowledge that you're here in the room as well.
Thank you very much, and I'm hoping we'll squeeze in time for audience questions as well, so hopefully we'll hear from some of our esteemed audience too. But Ankit, you're a founder as well, so we've got a great mix of experiences on the table.
Sure.
Self-paced or cohort-based courses. Once they've learned, they practice on the platform itself, either coding or non-coding or so. And once they've done this, they basically are able to showcase their skills to the top recruiters or the companies in the form of hackathons, quizzes, case competitions. And in that whole process, what they basically get to know is experience different industries, companies, and jobs. They also get to know, apart from what needs to be done in terms of what career they need to go forward, it is also important for them to know as to what path they don't need to take. So if I, as a student, have a plethora of options, right, whether e-commerce, data science or so, I should be able to at least test or experience what those options are, right, before starting my career. So I think what we are able to give them is plethora of options from all the top recruiters like Flipkart, Amazon, Ola, Uber, Reliance, Tata. Everybody hop onto our platform to engage with these users, and while they are engaging them, they are evaluating them for the right skills and the right people. So overall, we are sort of more like a LinkedIn for students.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for projecting so well. I hope we'll do our best to project until the sound comes back. But let's get to the heart of this session here. The title is Ready to Work. And maybe Stacey, as a representing a huge employer, tell us about the sort of extent the concerns about the size of the skills gaps we face. Are people today, are young people, are they ready to work?
Well, so I have no problem projecting to the back of the room because I used to teach and I also have 4 children, so I'm trying to but I would actually say it's not just our young people. I think all of us have been caught up in this kind of emerging trends where we have this rapid development of technology. It's ongoing. All of your software is updating up in the cloud all the time. And you log in and oh my God, there's UX is and then, of course, we have the really rapid development and accessibility of information. So it's not just our I know I think they're coming out of the curriculums that were designed, unfortunately, already several years prior, usually. So we're usually behind the times in education. So they're coming out already where they need to be because they're not. There's this connection between employers and formal education is one everybody's proud of for some time and really need to think about it. And I'm going to illustrate it. Even in the tagline of the thing, what do you see there? The future of learning and why are these two different things? Why is skilling separate than learning? I think that's the issue. Until we can make sure that the skills of what we need today are embedded in the learning that our students have. Oh, we're back. I don't have to scream at you anymore. I think that until we start to really question
that basic division in our minds and in the structures and the systems that we've created, we're going to continue to have issues whereby we're not able to connect those two easily.
Thank you. And I think we'll get into that a bit later. I think language is important, the parity of esteem, the way we treat certain types of learning. Are there higher types of learning and lower types of learning? It's a really interesting challenge that we need to confront as we all enter into lifelong learning. But Raghav, perhaps you could tell us from a data perspective, you've got millions of learners on your platform, upskilling, reskilling, whatever the terminology we should use, learning on your platform. What are you seeing are the most in-demand skills? What are the gaps that Coursera is starting to fill, and what's the demand looking like?
I think very broadly, I don't know if this is working. Yeah. Very broadly, I would say corporate India, mid-sized India companies are seeing need for skilling in 3 broad areas. These are tech, data science, and leadership. And I know there's been a bit of conversation around tech and data science, but let me take an example from what we are seeing in leadership in a very traditional industry. Last year, some of us met this company called Jindal Steel, and this might interest Stacey as well. So the Jindal Steel CHRO said, look, during the pandemic, our factories were producing oxygen for the nation, and we were sending trucks out, filling them with oxygen for the nation. And we were working 24/7 while there was lockdown. And the reason we think we managed to do it is because we've been working very actively on leadership. And I've been working on a leadership program for the top 100 people. So we said to him, that's great. What about scaling your leadership learning to 2,000, 3,000 people in the organization? And he said, obviously, I can't scale up to 2,000 people because how do I spend that much money? How do I get that much time? And we have a leadership academy. So we showed him the leadership academy. And we said, look, increasingly what you're telling us is leadership learning is not just for leaders or businesses, but it is for all of us. So lead yourself as an individual, especially after the pandemic. Lead teams and also continue to lead organizations, which is what traditionally leadership has spoken about. And so today, for the last 6 months now, Jindal Steel is running a program where 2,000 people are getting to learn leadership skills at all levels in the organization. And it's one of the most heaviest utilized programs just in terms of the amount of learning that is happening, et cetera, et cetera. So what I find exciting is not just the traditional corporate skilling around technology, data science, in tech services, tech products. I think there's a lot that has been done there. But we're increasingly seeing companies in auto, companies in consumer products, companies in logistics, companies in steel, saying we need to scale the kind of skills our colleagues have and bringing a lot of that access and availability to them.
Thank you. I should praise the panel's resilience and adaptability in coping so well with the loss of sound and audio. So that's great, showing great skill. Jawahir, I'd like to talk to you a bit more about this thing I mentioned at the beginning, the cliche, the robots are taking our jobs, but it's true, isn't it? I mean, there will be, it's the 4th Industrial Revolution. There's been, each time there have been perhaps lower skill jobs that have been made obsolete, but actually in this revolution, it's possibly, white collar jobs and higher paid jobs that might become obsolete. So what's your sense of the jobs that will disappear with technology, but also how would an employer, a corporate, actually think about how they work with their workforce and how they manage their human resources in that context?
Sure, great question, Phil. And I think we've heard about different technologies from Meta to ChatGPT, AIs coming in, sort of taking over and possibly taking jobs from us. I think we've been through the Industrial Revolution, we've been through a tech revolution, we've gone through an information revolution. However, people are still around. People are still in jobs, right? What happens is over time, people sort of learn to adapt, learn new skills, and transform their careers. If people stop learning, that's when they fall behind technology. And then, that's when sort of the jobs or opportunities are not available for them to take up. So I think, the question on, will these jobs go away? I think they'll get transformed, right? And new opportunities will get created. But these opportunities will get created for people who continue to learn and adapt, right? So there are skill sets we spoke about, and I think a previous panel spoke about, from data science. Raghav mentioned tech, coding. These will continue to grow and evolve. And there is going to be a huge demand. I think I just just looked up a statistic recently that said, there's a gap of almost 11 million data scientists needed in a country like India, right? So, I mean, this is continuing to grow, and corporations need to continue to invest in learning. When we started, I think initially when corporations looked at learning, they thought of it as, okay, they come in from a university, they come in from a college, traditional roots, they've gained a certain skill set, and that's it, and they continue doing their work. But now, the pace at which technology is changing, they need to continue to learn. I mean, the technology movement is so rapid that a year out, you're completely outdated from what you learned in the past year. So you need to keep abreast with what's happening, in each of these areas and continue to learn in that manner.
Stacey, I might ask you just to come in on that, because I know you felt you were quite passionate in the green room about this idea of your people becoming obsolete, and the fact that there is a sense of these people are no longer skilled, and we are struggling to find the right skills. I mean, well, as a corporate, there's a solution, right?
I think that he's referring to the fact, and it's a phrase that's been used many times today, about reskilling and upskilling. I do not use that terminology inside of a company. Why? Because we like to focus on meeting, and this goes from when I was back in education, we want to focus on meeting learners where they're at. And in order to do that, the language, if I come to you and I say, or if somebody came to me and said, hey, we have to upskill you, Stacey. What do you unintentionally tell that person? That they're not good enough to do the job that they're in now. Or we have to reskill you because, that might be the language that a lot of people are using in this room. But that's not a useful language when you reach out to real humans in the moment. And you have to give them opportunities to future-proof themselves. You have to give them opportunities to develop. It's all about opportunity, though, and telling them that they aren't somehow good enough. The people we have right now are doing excellent, excellent work. We are the leading steel company in the world because of the excellent work with the people that we currently have, and we need to start acknowledging the power in the workforce that we have, not the workforce that we wish we had. The people that we have now are capable and willing and hungry for these opportunities, and therefore I would encourage us to kind of dial down the reskilling, upskilling, and really, because these are humans that we're talking about, and they don't appreciate being spoken to that way. It's a relationship. And the way that you start a relationship is by including people, not telling them that they are not already, don't have a seat at the table.
Thanks,
Jawahir. I'd like to make 2 points to this. One, I think about a year back or so, there was a McKinsey survey out that said, I think one of the #1 reasons why people leave a job is because they felt the organization wasn't investing in them, right? That's a huge thing. You've got a great set of employees. They've done some great work. They've supported you in your growth. It's time you support them in theirs, right? So that's a big piece, and I think we're starting to see that shift in India today. Organizations from the conglomerates to all the multinationals are supporting these roles and continuing to focus on not just access to understanding and high-level education, but also deep skills that they can use and continue to grow in the future.
Thank you. And Ankit, when we were talking before the session, you talked about the focus here is the right skills, but it says to the right people. What's your take on how do we find, identify, harness the talents of the right people?
I think, very frankly, it's not, my view is very different. It's not the companies that identify the right talent. It's a candidate's market. People are free to identify which company, which industry, or which job profile works best for them. If you basically see students who pass out, either UG and PG, in India there was a survey, 75% of fresh graduates change their job within 3 years once, right? And 60% change their job twice. That's staggering, right? And why they are changing? Only because they just don't like doing what they basically got into. I mean, how many of us actually started our careers doing what we are doing right now? I think it will be less than 10%, right? What's I think where we all fail is that we are just giving those either, and I'm completely being radical, right? We are not the ones who should be telling you guys that become a data scientist or become an AI. If you're a technology guy, you need to figure out what area of expertise you want to get into, right? But to do that, what we are not able to do is give them different options that they can explore and then sort of move forward. I think that's what we are trying to solve at Unstop. Not the courses bit, right? Once you have learned all those courses, I think what we want them to know is what not to do. I think that's very, very critical for them to understand. And once you get that, you will basically at least get into a direction where you will understand that, hey, this is possibly the line of work that I would want to be. And then you will start on that journey of finding the right industry, company, and the job profile. So for me, I think it's the people who find the right company rather than the other way around.
I think I might be one of these weird anomalies. I've been at the same organization for 26 years. But I would say we've had 5 owners in my time, and I've had about 10 jobs. So I have been dynamic, really, even though it doesn't look like it. Raghav, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, could I add on an example which we are seeing on getting right skills to the right people? So this is this big 4 professional services company that we work with, hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue. And one of the big initiatives that the company, one of the big initiatives the company is driving is around sustainability, right? And as a part of that, and as a part of the brand reputation of the company, they've said, look, we're going to cut down carbon emissions by 50% and so on and so forth. And a lot of the carbon emissions, because this is a professional services company, comes from travel. So there is a plan to say, okay, over the next 2-3 years, we're going to cut down travel by 50% and so on. But we will maintain customer relations, but we will maintain customer centricity and so on and so forth. So how do you do that? And like we saw from Sandhya in the morning today, they're investing heavily in meta-related technologies. And so, you know, hundreds of thousands of people in the company want to figure out what is the metaverse. The most popular course in that company right now is what is the metaverse, which is taught on Coursera from leadership at Facebook. So Mark Zuckerberg is teaching what is the metaverse on Coursera. You could go on to do a professional certificate and so on and so forth. But the point I'm trying to make is getting the right skills to the right people means involving business context. If we are able to say, look, this is where your business is headed, and in that context, here are the skills that matter, the motivation, the time, the prioritization to learn those skills becomes a natural process. That's what I think is the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you. I want to get to the heart of this issue around getting the skills to people, the mechanism of getting there. And I was at a tech conference in the Middle East last year, and a chief exec of a major education platform, which will remain nameless, he said, we're going to do to higher education what Spotify has done to music, what Uber has done to transport, what Airbnb has done to the hospitality industry. And I think a lot of people in the room were, yes, that's exciting, it's amazing, universities are dead, they're ripe for disruption. And obviously in the higher education community, there's like, is that a good thing? That sounds terrible, that sounds frightening, it sounds awful. So I want to perhaps go back to you, Stacey, and say, is this higher education model, the 3 or 4 year degree, the residential degree, the deep learning involved there, is that actually defunct now? And what is an organization like yours doing to deliver skills to the right people in the right ways?
Well, that's a big question, and we only have 12 minutes left. But I will try to say that I don't think higher education is ever going to be dead, because it creates community and connection, and it's built on relationships. However, I do feel that there is a need to scale those things and to extend them in a variety of other ways and to make them very practical in the way that they approach. Throughout the world, we've constantly said there is a disconnect between industry and higher ed. We have to unify that for once and for all, because you're right, it's no good getting people out that don't have the skills. It shouldn't take us 2 years for our baby engineers to finally get out there and be useful in the plant. And so we've set up a Section 8 company. It's just being announced as we speak to really drive some collective impact with other corporates to be able to see if we can use some of the new policies in the national education policy to try and really rethink how we draw this connection. I don't think we have it cracked yet, but I do believe we're moving in the right direction. And I think the thing that makes it most exciting for doing that here in India is the scale of opportunity. I think there were some numbers in the previous session, but I'll go a little deeper on them, and I have to consult my notes. We roughly are saying that every year there's about 25 million students who are graduating from what I'll describe as high school. I know they have different names around here. Only about 5 million of those students find places in higher education, but there is a big disparity in the educational experience that they're finding. For us, the engineers, the ones that go to the IITs, there's only 23 of those in the country. And do you know how many are in there right now? How many BTech seats are in the IITs? Any guesses? No one? Come on. 16,053. So interesting number. Do you know how many, do you have ASU in the room? Arizona State University? I know they're here. Do you know how many in their Ira Fulton School of Engineering? Just how many students are in ASU's School of Engineering? Over 30,000. He knows all the answers very well. Good. He's fact-checked me. That's good to know. I think the scale of opportunity to look at how we can make sure here in India that we're getting more people with more hands-on opportunities at a much, much, much larger scale is really what's driving us.
Yeah, and scale is obviously, as we know from India alone, scale is massive, but as we look to improve access, improve social mobility worldwide, it's about scale and cost, isn't it? Raghav, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of very promising work that's happening in higher education in India at the moment on campuses. And just building on what Stacey shared as well, firstly at a regulatory level, the new education policy or, sub-constituents of that, the government has said, look, if you're an on-campus student, you're not getting access to the latest curricula, 40% of your credits can come from online platforms. And I don't think that's happened anywhere else in the world so far. So I think the other bit which has happened is the push around online degrees, because there is no way that we will go from 27% GER to 50%. There isn't enough space for campuses. There isn't enough money to double the number of campuses that we have. And what we are seeing, and to your question around, and I know you asked it on a lighter note, but will campuses go away? What we are seeing is this model of hybrid kicking in, which some campuses are doing very, very well, where you're saying that, look, I teach certain subjects and certain subjects I don't teach, and I need to incorporate that into my curricula. And today, my student is not limited to learning from my faculty on campus, but I can bring faculty from anywhere in the world. And that faculty could be from another university or even from another company for that matter, right? So I'm a BTech computer science student at Shulini University, and I don't get to study a particular topic, and I'm making this up. I don't know if you don't teach this or not, but Internet of Things. And you can say, okay, Princeton is going to teach Internet of Things via an online platform. So we're seeing hybrid really starting to really have meaningful impact on campuses at scale quite significantly.
Yeah, at Times Higher Education, we run a university leaders survey every year, a couple of hundred university presidents from around the world, and they've said, hybrid is here to stay. All the good things that came out of the forced move to digital will remain. And studies from MIT saying that actually you get to know your students better in a hybrid world, in a digital world. You see into their world much more than you do if they're at the back of a lecture theatre. And in Asia, the screens become a bridge to better interaction rather than more confident interaction. But let's just stay briefly on the model of disruption and the disruptive models. Jawahir, please, you go ahead and talk about your model, because I just want to understand the most exciting mechanisms to get these skills out to these learners.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. So, at Emeritus, one of the things we do is we focus on small online programs, right? So the SPOC model, where we have a batch about 100, 200 participants, but then they get broken down into smaller groups. We have access to live teaching from faculty. We have coaches, we have educators that support the learning systems and mechanisms through. And through such models, what we've done is with the new policy changes that are coming out, we have collaborated and developed newer offerings, right? So I'll talk about two especially. One is our boot camps. We worked very closely with MIT X-Pro and designed like a data engineering boot camp that brings down the cost of attending a program from a high regarded institution like MIT, and you have access to deep sort of learning in that particular course. The other one I want to talk about is a sort of a collaboration between IIM Kozhikode and University of Western Australia. These are two top-tier institutions that we've brought together at Emeritus, offering a certificate from one, and then on the second year completing that program, you actually get an MBA program, an MBA degree, right? And the policy changes that are now coming out through NEP that allow you to have access of multiple entry, multiple exits, as well as credit accumulation, allow for different models to flourish in our region. And I think, we spoke about the, 1.4 billion people that are there, and then if you look at the 60% or 64% population that's in the working space at that point, right? This is a huge population to address, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for such programs to develop and coexist in our ecosystem.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Sorry.
Ankit.
So I think one element also that we also need to think about, whether it's physical or digital, is community-based learning. I mean, I was listening to Prateek from PhysicsWala earlier. He mentioned that the biggest strength of PhysicsWala and why they've been able to grow phenomenally is because of the community of users, right? And that's what we have seen at Unstop as well, in terms of how one user will impact the way, or it's a peered learning, right? And that's why I believe that in some courses, it's completely fine to be digital. In some of the courses, I genuinely feel that those peer-to-peer discussions or those interactions that you have with those professors are much more critical. Like in an MBA, it might be much more critical rather than, let's say, a coding or a tech where you have to work, maybe as an individual.
Thank you. I did say, I've got literally 4 minutes, but I did say I'd try and get some audience interaction. Does anyone have any burning questions or comments they'd like to make? I'm not sure about mics, but I could bring a mic over to you. Anyone want to? I'll just give you my mic if that's all right, unless someone wants to. Sorry. But bear in mind I have 4 minutes, so it'll be very brief.
Firstly, it was really nice, and I really liked the comments made about our customers really being people as opposed to just looking at them as acquisition targets. My question is for the CEO of Unstop. Since you work in the graduate market, I run a similar company called Talorang. I was wondering, how do you acquire freshers? Because I know that's the hardest thing, and we've sort of resorted to B2B to do that.
So that's a secret sauce. Our CAC in today's world is 0. So at Unstop, we have about 5 million users right now, and we would have spent close to 0 in acquiring all those users. The main part is that community-led model that I was talking about. So on Unstop, if one student is joining, he or she or them ensures that there are other 4 who joins with them, right? And that's I think, puts across the value proposition of the platform as well, in terms of that if you are able to provide values to all your stakeholders and your users, I think the word of mouth and that chain reaction will start off, which happened very, very well for us, and which is very, very hard to beat. So I call that my moat in terms of my community that we are sort of creating. It's difficult to do, but once you have done that, then nobody can beat you, possibly.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes. I'm going to ask Stacey a really simple question that she could easily answer in 2 minutes, because you were most passionate about this in the pre-meeting. Can digital education ever surpass physical in terms of quality? Is there a sense that physical will always be a priority?
I don't think of it as either or. I think nowadays, we used to talk about online learning or digital learning, and now it's just learning, right? There's not a single thing that we do that doesn't have that aspect in our lives. So I think we can drop the whole online, digital, blended. Like, it's just learning, and it's just different tools that we use in learning. And whether it's good or bad is more about the, to your point, relationships, the community that you're building. That's what higher ed traditionally focused on and did very well. Ed tech is learning to do that, and it's developing the opportunities to do that. And the tools are now becoming more mature to allow you to feel that experience and be a part of that community. We still need to change the language a little bit, because when I hear customer acquisition costs, I kind of cringe, because in higher ed, the last thing you want to do is talk about your learners or your students as customers. This is not quite the same. I'm not just trying to sell you a burger and you to enjoy the burger, or earlier it was chocolate. That might be part of it. There is a transaction that occurs, but it's the relationship that you're trying to give, because it's the relationship that changes their life, not the actual transaction of having consumed a learning product. So I think as soon as we can get the ed tech to level themselves up a little bit into the learner mindset, I think we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful future ahead.
Well, that was a brilliant 2 minutes and a perfect way to end. So we've run out of time. What a brilliant whirlwind tour of some massive issues. So if you give the panel a massive thank you, I'm happy to finish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil and panel, and thanks so much for working through that, improvising through the power cut. Apparently we had a solar generator that didn't find the sun, so switched off. Thank you.